The galaxy stretched out endlessly, a swirling tapestry of stars, planets, and mysteries waiting to be uncovered. Humanity had come far since its first steps into space. What began as tentative exploration had grown into something much larger, a civilization that spanned dozens of worlds, thriving on innovation and resilience. Still, humanity was young compared to the ancient powers of the cosmos. Like the Galactic Empire, this empire ruled over countless species with an iron grip, its influence reaching every corner of known space. Daniel Carter stood at the edge of the observation deck aboard the Odyssey, his hands clasped behind his back. He stared out at the endless void, his mind racing. The ship hummed softly around him, a comforting reminder of human ingenuity. It was sleek and powerful, designed not just for defense, but also for diplomacy. Daniel wasn't a soldier, he was a negotiator, one of the best humanity had to offer. His calm demeanor and sharp intellect made him a natural choice for missions requiring tact and precision. But this mission felt different. There was an unease in the air, a tension that even the most advanced technology couldn't dispel. Captain Laura Bennett approached quietly, her boots clicking lightly against the metal floor. She stopped beside him, gazing out at the same view. Her expression was serious, her brow furrowed. "You ready for this?" she asked, breaking the silence. Daniel glanced at her briefly before turning his attention back to the stars. "As ready as I'll ever be," he replied. His voice carried confidence, though inside he wasn't so sure. This wasn't some minor trade dispute or border negotiation. This was the heart of the Galactic Empire, a place where decisions could shape the fate of entire civilizations. And humanity, still relatively new to the galactic stage, was walking into the lion's den. Laura nodded, sensing his hesitation. "Just remember who you're representing. We've earned our seat at the table. Don't let anyone make you forget that." He gave her a small smile. "I won't." The summons had come unexpectedly. The Galactic Empire rarely involved itself directly in human affairs unless it served their interests. Yet here they were, inviting representatives from all member species to discuss recent tensions along their borders. Officially, it was framed as a peace summit, a chance for dialogue and cooperation. Unofficially, rumors swirled about ulterior motives. Some whispered that the Empire was testing humanity's resolve, probing for weaknesses. Others believed it was a trap, a setup to justify further aggression. Whatever the truth, humanity couldn't afford to ignore the invitation. Declining would have been seen as an act of defiance, potentially sparking conflict. Accepting meant stepping into unknown territory, where every word and action would be scrutinized. That's why Daniel had been chosen. His ability to remain composed under pressure was legendary, and his knack for finding common ground, even in the most hostile situations, had saved countless lives. But there was more weighing on Daniel's mind than just the upcoming meeting. Earlier that day, Lieutenant Emily Dawson had delivered troubling news. Emily was part of Earth's covert intelligence network, embedded deep within the Empire. She had sent encrypted data hinting at something catastrophic happening back home. An attack, perhaps, but without concrete evidence it was impossible to say for certain. Daniel wrestled with what to do. If he raised the issue prematurely, he risked escalating tensions unnecessarily. On the other hand, if the information proved true and he said nothing, humanity might lose valuable time preparing for retaliation. For now, he decided to keep it between himself, Laura, and a select few trusted officers. They needed more confirmation before taking any drastic action. The journey to Zirion Prime, the Empire's capital planet, took several days. During that time, Daniel spent hours rehearsing his speech, refining each sentence until it conveyed exactly the right tone. He wanted to strike a balance, assertive enough to command respect, but conciliatory enough to avoid provoking hostility. Laura reviewed drafts with him, offering feedback whenever she thought he sounded too cautious or too bold. Together, they crafted a message they hoped would resonate with the diverse array of delegates attending the summit. As the Odyssey entered orbit around Xerion Prime, Daniel felt a mix of excitement and dread. The planet below was breathtaking, its surface dotted with sprawling cities bathed in golden sunlight. Towering spires reached toward the heavens, symbols of the Empire's dominance and ambition. Ships of all shapes and sizes filled the skies, weaving through intricate flight patterns. Humanity's arrival didn't go unnoticed. Imperial warships flanked the Odyssey, escorting it to a designated docking station near the Grand Hall where the summit would take place. Once aboard, Daniel joined a procession of delegates making their way to the chamber. Alien faces surrounded him, some curious, others indifferent, and a few openly hostile. Whispers followed him wherever he went, snippets of conversations in languages he didn't understand. He kept his head high, refusing to show weakness. Beside him, Laura maintained a protective presence, her eyes scanning the crowd for potential threats. When they finally entered the Grand Hall, Daniel was struck by its sheer scale. The ceiling soared overhead, adorned with intricate carvings depicting scenes of conquest and unity. Rows of seats spiraled upward, creating a massive amphitheater. At the center stood a raised platform where speakers would address the assembly. Above it all loomed Emperor Aldrich IV, seated on a throne that seemed carved from solid gold. His piercing gaze swept across the room, commanding respect without saying a word. One by one, representatives from various species took turns speaking. Some praised the Empire's leadership, while others voiced grievances about resource allocation or territorial disputes. Daniel listened intently, noting alliances and rivalries among the attendees. When it was his turn to speak, he stepped onto the platform, feeling the weight of countless eyes upon him. Taking a deep breath, he began. "On behalf of humanity," he said, his voice steady and clear, "we are honored to stand here today alongside such esteemed representatives. Our journey has been long and challenging, but we have always sought peace and cooperation. We believe that together we can achieve greatness beyond measure." His words flowed smoothly, earning nods of approval from some delegates. But halfway through his speech, Emily's transmission arrived, a brief yet urgent message confirming her earlier suspicions. The attack on Earth had happened. Millions were dead or displaced. Cities lay in ruins. Daniel's heart sank, but outwardly he remained composed. Finishing his prepared remarks, he paused, allowing the gravity of the moment to settle. Then, with deliberate slowness, he added, "Before concluding, I must address a matter of utmost importance. Recent events have brought us great sorrow and anger. You attacked our home." A hush fell over the chamber. Gasps echoed through the vast space, as delegates turned to one another in shock. Emperor Aldrich rose from his throne, his expression unreadable. "Explain yourself," he demanded, his voice booming like thunder. Daniel activated a holographic display projecting images of burning cities and crippled ships. Each frame told a story of devastation wrought by Imperial forces. The evidence was undeniable. Chaos erupted as accusations flew, and Daniel knew he had crossed a line. Whether it was wise or reckless wouldn't matter until later. For now, humanity had spoken, and the galaxy listened. With the declaration hanging heavy in the air, Daniel stepped back from the podium, his pulse racing. Whatever happened next, humanity's fate was no longer in shadow. It was out in the open, exposed to the harsh light of galactic politics. The Grand Hall of the Galactic Senate was alive with tension. The delegates, who moments ago had been focused on routine discussions about borders and trade agreements, were now in an uproar. Daniel Carter stood frozen at the podium, his heart pounding as he watched the chaos unfold. His declaration, "You attacked our home," had struck like a thunderclap, shattering the carefully maintained image of diplomatic harmony. Whispers turned into shouts, and some alien representatives rose from their seats, pointing accusing fingers or gesturing wildly. Emperor Aldrich IV, seated high above the assembly on his golden throne, stared down at Daniel with a mixture of shock and fury. His regal composure faltered for just a moment before he regained control. With a wave of his hand, he signaled for silence, though it took several moments for the room to settle. The Emperor's voice cut through the lingering murmurs, like a blade. "Ambassador Carter," he began, his tone cold and commanding, "you accuse us of attacking your world? You bring these claims without proof?" Daniel swallowed hard but held his ground. He knew that backing down now would be disastrous. "Your Majesty," he replied, his voice steady despite the storm raging inside him. "I do not come here with empty accusations." Reaching for the controls of the holographic display, he activated the next sequence of images. Footage filled the air above the podium, burning cities, shattered buildings, and skies streaked with smoke. Each frame showed unmistakable evidence of orbital bombardments carried out by warships bearing the insignia of the Galactic Empire. A collective gasp rippled through the chamber. Some delegates leaned forward, studying the images closely. Others exchanged hushed conversations, their expressions ranging from disbelief to outrage. A few human representatives seated near the back of the hall clenched their fists, their faces pale with anger and grief. Among them was Captain Laura Bennett, who watched intently, her jaw tight. She had seen fragments of this footage earlier, but witnessing it projected so publicly made the reality hit harder than ever. "This is unacceptable," shouted a reptilian ambassador from the Korath Collective, one of the Empire's closest allies. His scales shimmered with agitation as he pointed a clawed finger at Daniel. "How dare you slander the Empire with such lies? These could be fabricated." Daniel didn't flinch. Instead, he calmly addressed the chamber. "If anyone doubts the authenticity of these recordings, I invite them to analyze the data themselves. Every frame carries timestamps and geolocation markers. These attacks occurred mere hours ago, targeting Earth itself." His words sent another ripple through the crowd. For many species, Earth was little more than a distant memory, a planet they associated with humanity's humble beginnings. To see it attacked so brazenly shocked even those who harbored no love for humans. Yet skepticism remained. Skepticism always lingered when dealing with the Empire's vast bureaucracy, where truths were often buried beneath layers of deception. General Marcus Voss, a towering figure clad in ornate battle armor, stepped forward from his seat among the Imperial delegation, known for his ruthless tactics and unyielding loyalty to Emperor Aldrich. Voss exuded authority. His sharp eyes scanned the room, daring anyone to challenge him. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of command. "Even if these images are genuine, Ambassador Carter, how can you prove the Empire authorized this attack? Perhaps rogue elements within our military acted independently. It was a clever deflection, designed to sow doubt and shift blame." Daniel recognized the tactic immediately, but refused to let it derail his argument. "Rogue elements," he echoed, his tone laced with skepticism. "Warships bearing your flag launched coordinated strikes against multiple targets across Earth. Such precision requires authorization, and resources only the Empire possesses." Voss's lips curled into a faint sneer. "Bold words, Ambassador. But boldness alone won't save your people." The jab drew murmurs of agreement from some corners of the chamber. Humanity's position was precarious. They were newcomers to the galactic stage, still viewed by many as inferior and unworthy of equal standing. Daniel knew that appealing to emotions wouldn't be enough. He needed to build alliances quickly. Scanning the room, he locked eyes with Ambassador Liravok, a representative of the Zorathians. Her species was neutral, neither aligned with the Empire nor openly hostile toward humanity. If anyone could sway opinion, it might be her. As the debate raged on, Daniel's thoughts drifted briefly to Emily Dawson. Earlier, she had warned him about the possibility of an attack, hinting that something catastrophic was brewing. Now, standing in the midst of this political firestorm, he wondered how much she truly knew. Was this part of a larger plan? And if so, what role did General Voss play in it? Back aboard the Odyssey, Laura Bennett convened an emergency meeting with her senior staff. Lieutenant Emily Dawson joined via secure transmission, her face appearing on a large screen in the briefing room. Chief Engineer Ryan Mitchell sat beside Laura, his hands resting on the table as he listened intently. Sergeant Alex Grant, A burly man with scars lining his knuckles leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "What exactly are we dealing with here?" Laura asked, her gaze fixed on Emily. "Is this attack isolated or is there more coming?" Emily hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "Based on intel I've gathered, this wasn't a random strike. It's part of a broader strategy to weaken humanity before launching a full-scale invasion. And yes, General Voss is involved. He views us as a threat to the Empire's dominance and wants to eliminate us before we grow stronger." Ryan frowned, rubbing the back of his neck. "So what you're saying is this isn't over?" "Not by a long shot." "Exactly," Emily confirmed. "We need to expose Voss's plans to the rest of the galaxy. Without proof, though, we risk looking like aggressors ourselves. That's why Daniel's move today was critical. It bought us time, but we have to act fast." Laura nodded grimly. "Agreed. We'll support Daniel however we can, but we also need to prepare for the worst. Ryan, start reinforcing our defenses. Alex, assemble a strike team in case we need boots on the ground. Emily, keep digging. Find anything you can that ties Voss directly to these attacks." Meanwhile, back in the Grand Hall, Daniel faced mounting pressure. Several delegates accused humanity of fabricating evidence to destabilize the Empire. Others argued that the attack on Earth, regardless of its origins, justified retaliation. Tensions escalated further when a representative from the Krillian Concord, a militaristic faction notorious for its disdain of weaker species, rose to speak. "Ambassador Carter," the Krillian said, his voice dripping with contempt, "your kind has always been troublemakers, pushing into territories that don't belong to you, stirring up dissent wherever you go. Maybe this attack was inevitable. Maybe it's time you learned your place." Anger flared in Daniel's chest, but he forced himself to remain calm. Losing control now would only validate their accusations. "My people seek peace and prosperity," he countered, his voice firm, "but we will not stand idly by while our homes are destroyed and our families slaughtered. If the Empire wishes to avoid conflict, then it must hold accountable those responsible for this atrocity." Applause erupted from a section of the chamber where sympathetic delegates sat. These were smaller species, ones who had suffered under the Empire's rule and saw humanity's plight as a reflection of their own struggles. Their support bolstered Daniel's resolve, but he knew it wasn't enough. Winning over the majority would require more than impassioned speeches. As the session dragged on, Daniel noticed subtle shifts in the room's dynamics. Some delegates glanced nervously at General Voss, while others whispered urgently to their aides. Clearly doubts were forming. Whether they stemmed from genuine concern or fear of being implicated remained unclear. What mattered was that cracks were beginning to appear in the Empire's facade of unity. Finally, after hours of heated discussion, Emperor Aldrich called for order once more. Rising from his throne, he addressed the assembly with slow, deliberate words. "This matter cannot be resolved today. Investigations will commence immediately to determine the truth behind these allegations. Until then, let us adjourn and reflect on the gravity of what has transpired." With that, the session ended. Delegates filed out of the chamber, their expressions ranging from contemplative to furious. Daniel stayed behind, watching as the Emperor descended from his throne and disappeared into a private corridor. General Voss lingered momentarily, his piercing gaze locking onto Daniel's. There was no mistaking the venom in his stare. It was a promise of retribution. When Daniel returned to the Odyssey, he found Laura waiting for him in the observation deck. She handed him a cup of coffee, her expression unreadable. "Well?" she asked simply. He sighed, taking a sip before responding. "We've stirred the pot. Now we wait to see what boils over." Laura nodded, gazing out at the stars. "Whatever happens next, we'll face it together, just like always." For the first time since making his declaration, Daniel allowed himself a small smile. The road ahead would be fraught with danger, but humanity had proven time and again that it could endure. Whatever challenges lay in store, they would meet them head-on, and they would fight for their survival. The aftermath of Daniel Carter's declaration weighed heavily on the Odyssey. The ship hummed quietly as its crew worked tirelessly to process the events unfolding around them. Back in the observation deck, Daniel stood by the large viewport, staring out at the glittering expanse of stars. His mind raced with questions and possibilities. What would happen next? How far could humanity push before the Empire retaliated? And most importantly, how much time did they have before another attack came? Captain Laura Bennett joined him after a few moments, her boots clicking softly against the metal floor. She placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You did what you had to do," she said firmly. "Now we focus on staying one step ahead." Daniel nodded, but didn't respond immediately. He knew Laura was right, but the weight of responsibility pressed down on him. Humanity's survival depended on their ability to navigate this crisis, and every decision he made could tip the scales toward peace or war. Still, there was no room for doubt now. They had crossed a line, and retreat wasn't an option. In the briefing room, Lieutenant Emily Dawson updated the senior staff on her latest findings. Her face appeared on the main screen, illuminated by the soft glow of her workstation aboard Xerion Prime. "I've been digging deeper into General Voss's operations," she explained, her voice low and urgent. "He's been consolidating power within the military, sidelining officers who question his methods. It's clear he's planning something big, something beyond just attacking Earth." Chief Engineer Ryan Mitchell leaned forward, frowning. "You think he's aiming for a full-scale invasion?" "It's possible," Emily replied. "But I also suspect he's trying to force Emperor Aldrich's hand. If Voss can frame humanity as a threat, he might convince the Emperor to declare open war. That way he gets to act without restraint and consolidate even more control." "Sergeant." Alex Grant, who had remained silent until now, spoke up. "So what's the plan? We sitting ducks here, or are we hitting back?" Laura exchanged a glance with Daniel before answering. "We need proof first," she said. "Proof that ties Voss directly to the attacks. Without it, we're fighting, blind, and risking everything." Emily nodded. "Agreed. But getting that proof won't be easy. Voss operates out of a heavily fortified base on Kalos 7. It's remote, guarded like a fortress, and crawling with elite troops. If anyone goes in, they'll need to be careful." Daniel listened intently, his mind already piecing together a strategy. "Then someone has to go," he said finally. "If we wait for the Empire to investigate, it'll take too long, and Voss will cover his tracks. We don't have the luxury of time." The room fell silent as everyone absorbed his words. Laura broke the tension. "All right, let's assume we send a team. Who's going?" "I'll lead it," Daniel said without hesitation. Laura raised an eyebrow. "You're our top diplomat, not a soldier. Sending you into enemy territory is asking for trouble." "And yet I'm the one who knows what's at stake," Daniel countered. "Besides, if things go sideways, having a negotiator on hand might make all the difference." After a brief pause, Laura reluctantly agreed. "Fine. But you're not going alone. Emily and Alex will go with you. Stick together, stay sharp, and don't do anything reckless." With the decision made, preparations began immediately. The trio reviewed maps of Kalos 7, studying its layout and identifying potential entry points. Ryan worked alongside the engineering team to outfit them with advanced gear, holographic disguises, encrypted communication devices, and compact hacking tools. Every detail mattered. Failure wasn't an option. On Xerion Prime, Ambassador Liravok approached Daniel during a break in the ongoing summit discussions. The Zorathian ambassador was shorter than most human delegates, her slender frame draped in flowing robes that shimmered faintly under the artificial light. Her large, almond-shaped eyes held a quiet intelligence, and her demeanor radiated calm authority. "Ambassador Carter," she began, her voice soft yet firm, "your accusations have stirred considerable unrest. Many are watching closely to see how this unfolds." Daniel inclined his head respectfully. "Ambassador Liravok, thank you for speaking with me. I know my claims sound bold, perhaps even reckless, but the evidence speaks for itself." Liravok studied him for a moment before continuing. "General Voss is a dangerous man. He has long harbored ambitions of expanding the Empire's reach at any cost. Some believe he orchestrated the attack on your world to justify such expansion. However, proving his involvement will be difficult. That's why I need your help, Daniel admitted. If the Zorathians were to lend their support, if you could vouch for the authenticity of our evidence, it might sway undecided delegates. Lyravok hesitated, weighing her options. Finally, she nodded. Very well. But understand this. My people value neutrality above all else. Our assistance comes with conditions. You must provide irrefutable proof of Voss's treachery. Only then can we act. Understood, Daniel said, relief washing over her. Thank you, Ambassador. Days later, the infiltration mission commenced. Disguised as traders delivering supplies to Kalos 7, Daniel, Emily, and Alex landed their small shuttle near the outskirts of Voss's stronghold. The moon's surface was barren, dotted with jagged rocks and craters. A biting wind whipped through the air carrying traces of sulfur. Above them loomed the fortress, a sprawling complex of steel and concrete surrounded by walls bristling with turrets. As they approached the gates, Daniel activated the holographic disguise, projecting the image of a burly alien trader named Dracor. Emily and Alex followed suit, adopting the appearances of his assistants. The guards at the checkpoint scrutinized their credentials briefly before waving them through. Inside, the trio moved cautiously, sticking to shadowy corners and avoiding patrols. Emily led the way, her tablet displaying a live map of the facility. Their target was the central data hub, where classified files were stored. Reaching it required navigating through multiple layers of security, including biometric scanners and armed guards. At one point, they nearly got caught when a patrol rounded a corner unexpectedly. Thinking quickly, Alex shoved Daniel into a nearby alcove while pretending to argue loudly with Emily about cargo manifests. The guards passed by without suspicion, though Alex muttered a curse under his breath once they were gone. Finally, they reached the data hub. Emily knelt beside a terminal, inserting a small device that bypassed the encryption protocols. Lines of code scrolled across her screen as she sifted through the files. Got it, she whispered triumphantly. These logs confirm Voss ordered the attack on Earth. There's even correspondence between him and his subordinates discussing the operation. Good work, Daniel said. Let's get out of here before someone notices. But their escape wasn't so simple. As they retraced, their steps' alarms blared throughout the facility. Red lights flashed, bathing the corridors in an ominous glow. They know we're here, Alex shouted, pulling out a compact blaster. Weapons down, Daniel snapped. We're supposed to be traders, remember? Keep acting natural. For a fleeting moment, it seemed like they might slip away unnoticed. Then a squad of elite soldiers blocked their path, weapons drawn. Halt! Their leader barked. Identify yourselves. Thinking fast, Emily stepped forward, her disguised form trembling slightly. We're just delivery personnel, she stammered. We heard the alarm and panicked. Please, let us leave. The soldier frowned, clearly suspicious. Before he could respond, Alex lunged forward, tackling him to the ground. Chaos erupted as the rest of the squad opened fire. Daniel and Emily dove for cover behind a stack of crates, returning fire with precision. Plan B, Daniel yelled over the din. Find another exit. Working together, the trio fought their way through the chaos, using improvised tactics to outmaneuver their pursuers. At one point, Ryan's modifications proved invaluable when Emily deployed a smoke grenade, obscuring their movements long enough to slip past reinforcements. Just as they reached the hangar bay, reinforcements poured in from all sides. Cornered and outnumbered, Daniel transmitted the stolen files to the Odyssey using a portable uplink device. Laura, we've sent the data. Get ready to broadcast it. Copy that, Laura replied over the comlink. Hold tight. We're coming. For you. Seconds later, the transmission ended, leaving the trio trapped but victorious. Proof of Voss's betrayal was now in safe hands. Whatever happened next, humanity had struck a critical blow against the Empire's lies. As the Imperial forces closed in, Daniel glanced at Emily and Alex, both battered but resolute. No matter what happens, he said. We did the right thing, and with that they prepared to face whatever fate awaited them. The situation inside the hangar bay of Voss's stronghold on Kalos 7 was dire. Daniel Carter, Emily Dawson, and Alex Grant stood back to back, surrounded by Imperial soldiers armed to the teeth. The trio had managed to transmit the stolen files to the Odyssey, but their escape route was cut off. Reinforcements poured in from every direction, their weapons trained on the intruders. There was no way out, no clear path to freedom. Daniel glanced at his companions. Emily's face was pale, her hands trembling slightly as she clutched a small blaster. Alex, ever the fighter, looked ready to charge headfirst into the fray, though even he knew they were outnumbered. We can't fight our way out of this, Daniel said quietly, his voice calm despite the chaos around them. We need another plan. Alex frowned. What other plan? We're boxed in, Daniel. Unless you've got some secret weapon hidden up your sleeve, we're done for. Daniel didn't respond immediately. His mind raced, searching for any opening, any chance to turn the tide. Then an idea struck him, a risky one, but it might just work. Emily, he said, turning to her, do you still have that smoke grenade? She nodded, pulling it from her belt. Yeah, but it won't last long enough to get us out of here. It doesn't need to, Daniel replied. We'll use it as a distraction. Once the smoke fills the room, Alex, you create a diversion. Draw their fire while Emily and I make a run for the shuttle. Alex raised an eyebrow. You want me to play bait? That's your brilliant plan? It's not ideal, but it's all we've got, Daniel admitted. If we stay here, we're dead anyway. At least this gives us a fighting chance. After a brief pause, Alex let out a resigned sigh. All right, fine. But if I don't make... Hey, tell my mom I died doing something stupid. A faint smile flickered across Daniel's face. Will do. With the plan set, Emily activated the smoke grenade, tossing it toward the center of the hangar. Thick clouds billowed out almost instantly, obscuring visibility. Shouts erupted from the soldiers as they struggled to locate their targets. Seizing the moment, Alex charged forward, firing wildly into the haze. His reckless assault drew immediate attention, forcing the soldiers to focus their efforts on him. Meanwhile, Daniel grabbed Emily's arm and pulled her toward the shuttle parked nearby. They moved quickly, staying low to avoid detection. Bullets whizzed past them, ricocheting off the metal walls with sharp pings. The air was thick with tension, every second stretching like an eternity. Almost there, Daniel urged, glancing over his shoulder to ensure no one was following them. Just as they reached the shuttle's hatch, a loud explosion rocked the hangar. The blast sent a shockwave rippling through the room, knocking both of them off their feet. What was that? Emily gasped, struggling to stand. Daniel squinted through the dissipating smoke and saw flames licking at the far end of the hangar. Amidst the chaos, Alex emerged from the inferno, limping but alive. Had a little fun with some fuel barrels, he said with a grim smile. Let's go before they regroup. Without wasting another second, the three scrambled aboard the shuttle. Daniel took the pilot's seat, his hands flying over the controls as he powered up the engines. Outside, the remaining soldiers recovered from the confusion and began firing at the shuttle. Sparks flew as bullets impacted the hull, but the craft held together long enough for Daniel to lift off. The shuttle surged upward, breaking free of the hangar and speeding away from Kalos 7. Behind them, the fortress grew smaller and smaller until it disappeared entirely. For the first time since landing on the moon, Daniel allowed himself to breathe. Back aboard the Odyssey, Captain Laura Bennett monitored the transmission feed anxiously. When the stolen files arrived, she wasted no time distributing them to key allies within the Galactic Senate. Ambassador Liravok had promised support, and now was the moment to deliver. With the evidence in hand, humanity's case against General Voss became undeniable. Laura gathered her senior staff in the briefing room, where holographic displays projected excerpts from the classified logs. Chief Engineer Ryan Mitchell studied the data intently, shaking his head in disbelief. This is insane, he muttered. Voss wasn't just planning an attack, he was orchestrating a full-scale invasion. Earth was just the beginning. Sergeant Alex Grant chimed in, his tone grim. And if we hadn't stopped him, who knows how many more planets would have been targeted next? Laura nodded, her expression hardening. Which is why we need to act fast. The sooner we expose Voss, the better our chances of preventing further bloodshed. At that moment, communication channels lit up as reports came in from Xerion Prime. Emperor Aldrich IV had called an emergency session of the Galactic Senate, citing urgent matters requiring immediate attention. It didn't take a genius to guess what those matters were. When Daniel, Emily, and Alex returned to the Odyssey, they were greeted with cheers from the crew. Exhausted but triumphant, the trio joined Laura and the others in the observation deck. Through the viewport, they could see Xerion Prime growing larger as the ship approached the planet once again. You did it, Laura said, addressing Daniel directly. You got the proof we needed. Now it's up to us to make sure the galaxy sees it. Daniel nodded, though his relief was tempered by caution. We're not out of the woods yet. Even with this evidence, there are still plenty of species loyal to the Empire. Convincing them won't be easy. That's where Lyravok comes in, Laura reminded him. Her endorsement carries weight. If she stands with us, others will follow. As the Odyssey docked at the Imperial capital, preparations for the emergency session intensified. Delegates from across the galaxy streamed into the Grand Hall, their faces etched with curiosity and concern. Whispers filled the air as everyone speculated about what Emperor Aldrich intended to say. Rumors of Voss's betrayal had already begun to spread thanks to carefully timed leaks orchestrated by Laura and her team. When the session began, the Emperor rose from his throne, his presence commanding silence. His gaze swept across the chamber, lingering briefly on Daniel before addressing the assembly. Recent events have brought dishonor upon the Empire, he declared, his voice resonating throughout the vast space. An investigation has uncovered treachery within our own ranks, treachery that threatens the stability of the galaxy itself. Gasps rippled through the crowd as holographic projections displayed excerpts from the stolen files. Each frame painted a damning picture of General Voss's actions, leaving no doubt about his guilt. Some delegates sat in stunned silence, while others exchanged heated whispers. Among them, Ambassador Lyravok stood, her voice cutting through the murmurs. These revelations demand justice, she proclaimed, her words carrying authority. General Voss must answer for his crimes, not only to humanity, but to the entire galaxy. To ignore this truth would be to condone such atrocities. Her statement sparked a wave of agreement from sympathetic delegates, including representatives from smaller, oppressed species. Humanity's gamble was paying off. Alliances were forming, united by a shared desire for accountability. General Voss, seated among the Imperial delegation, looked visibly shaken. He tried to protest, claiming the evidence was fabricated, but his arguments fell flat in the face of overwhelming proof. Even his closest allies began to distance themselves, unwilling to be tainted by association. Emperor Aldrich, recognizing the shift in momentum, acted decisively. With a single command, he ordered Voss's arrest. Elite guards descended upon the general, dragging him from the chamber amidst cries of outrage. The sight sent a clear message. Betrayal would not be tolerated. As the session concluded, Daniel felt a mix of relief and apprehension. While Voss's removal marked a significant victory, the underlying tensions remained unresolved. Many factions still viewed humanity with suspicion, and rebuilding trust would require time and effort. Later that evening, Daniel found himself alone in the observation deck, gazing out at the stars. Laura joined him after a while, offering a comforting smile. "You did good," she said simply. He sighed, leaning against the railing. "It's not over, though, not by a long shot." "No, it's not," Laura agreed. "But we've taken a step forward, and sometimes that's all you can ask for." For now, humanity had earned a reprieve, a chance to regroup and rebuild. But Daniel knew the road ahead would be fraught with challenges. Still, as he looked out at the endless expanse of the cosmos, he couldn't help but feel a spark of hope. Against all odds, humanity had proven it belonged among the stars. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The aftermath of General Voss's arrest rippled across the galaxy like a shockwave. News of his betrayal spread quickly, carried by both official Imperial broadcasts and whispered rumors among the stars. For humanity, it was a moment of vindication, but also a sobering reminder of how fragile their position remained. While the Empire had acted swiftly to punish one of its own, the underlying tensions between humanity and the Galactic Empire were far from resolved. Daniel Carter stood on the observation deck of the Odyssey, staring out at Zarian Prime as the ship prepared to depart. The planet below shimmered in hues of gold and blue, its beauty masking the political turmoil brewing beneath its surface. Though Voss's removal had been a victory, Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that they had only scratched the surface of a much larger problem. The Empire's vast bureaucracy still harbored countless individuals who viewed humanity as an unwelcome upstart, a threat to their dominance. Captain Laura Bennett joined him, her expression thoughtful. "You did everything you could," she said, breaking the silence. "Voss is gone and the galaxy knows the truth. That's more than we could have hoped for." Daniel nodded but didn't turn to face her. "It feels hollow, though. We stopped one man, but what about the others? How many more like Voss are waiting in the wings?" Laura sighed, leaning against the railing beside him. "This isn't just about Voss. It's about proving to the galaxy that we're not afraid to stand up for ourselves. Every time someone tries to push us around, we fight back. That's how we earn respect." Her words resonated with Daniel, even if they didn't fully ease his concerns. Humanity's survival depended not just on winning battles, but on building lasting alliances. And while Ambassador Lyra Vok and other sympathetic delegates had rallied behind them during the crisis, maintaining those relationships would require constant effort. Back aboard the Odyssey, Lieutenant Emily Dawson worked tirelessly to analyze additional data recovered from Kalos 7. Her workstation was cluttered with holographic displays, each showing fragments of classified documents detailing Voss's plans. As she sifted through the information, something caught her attention, a reference to a secondary operation codenamed Iron Fist. Unlike the attack on Earth, this operation appeared to target multiple planets simultaneously, including several key trade hubs within the Empire. Emily immediately alerted Daniel and Captain Bennett. In the briefing room, she projected the relevant files onto the central screen. "This isn't just about us," she explained, pointing to a map of the affected regions. "Voss wasn't planning a single strike. He was preparing for a full-scale war. These targets aren't random. They're strategic choke points designed to cripple the Empire's economy and destabilize entire sectors." Chief Engineer Ryan Mitchell frowned, studying the map closely. "If these attacks went ahead, it wouldn't just hurt the Empire. It'd cause chaos across the galaxy. Trade routes would collapse, resources would dry up, and weaker species would suffer the most." Sergeant Alex Grant crossed his arms, his expression grim. "So what do we do? Warn the affected planets? Try to stop whatever's coming next?" Laura considered the options carefully. "We can't act alone. If we start interfering in Imperial affairs, we'll look like aggressors. But if we sit back and do nothing, innocent people will die. We need to find a middle ground." Daniel nodded, already formulating a plan. Lyra Vok might be able to help. She has connections throughout the Senate, and her influence could give us access to areas we can't reach directly. If we share this intel with her, she might be able to rally support for preemptive measures. Later that day, Daniel met privately with Ambassador Lyra Vok aboard Zarian Prime. The Zorathian ambassador listened intently as he outlined the details of Operation Iron Fist, her large eyes narrowing in concern. When he finished, she leaned back in her chair, her fingers tapping lightly on the armrest. "This changes everything," she murmured. "If word gets out that the Empire allowed such a scheme to exist, it could fracture the Senate entirely. Species loyal to Aldrich would lose faith, while dissenters would seize the opportunity to rebel." "Exactly," Daniel agreed. "That's why we need to act carefully. If we expose this publicly, it could trigger panic, or worse, another power grab by someone like Voss. But if we work quietly, we might be able to neutralize the threat before it escalates." Lyra Vok studied him for a moment, weighing her response. Finally, she nodded. I'll see what I can do. My people have agents embedded in key locations. We'll monitor the situation and intervene where possible. But understand this. My involvement comes with risks. If anyone discovers our actions, it could cost me my position and perhaps my life. I understand, Daniel said sincerely. And I won't forget what you're risking for us. With Lyravok's assistance, secured, the Odyssey shifted focus to addressing the fallout from the recent events. Back on Earth, recovery efforts were underway, though progress was slow. Cities lay in ruins, their skylines marred by smoke and rubble. Millions of survivors struggled to rebuild their lives amidst shortages of food, water, and medical supplies. Images of the devastation circulated widely, stirring sympathy from some corners of the galaxy and scorn from others. In response, Captain Bennett coordinated relief missions, sending shipments of aid to affected regions. Chief Engineer Ryan Mitchell oversaw the retrofitting of cargo vessels to carry essential supplies, while Sergeant Alex Grant led teams tasked with securing distribution points against looters and opportunists. Despite the challenges, the crew of the Odyssey worked tirelessly, determined to show that humanity wasn't defined by its tragedies, but by its resilience. Meanwhile, Daniel focused on strengthening diplomatic ties with other species. He reached out to representatives from smaller factions, offering assistance and solidarity in exchange for future cooperation. Some accepted gratefully, recognizing the value of aligning with a rising power. Others remained wary, fearing retaliation from the Empire if they were seen as too friendly with humanity. One evening, as the Odyssey orbited a distant moon, Daniel found himself reflecting on the journey so far. The ship's corridors were quiet, save for the faint hum of machinery and the occasional footsteps of passing crew members. He made his way to the mess hall where Emily sat alone at a table, scrolling through reports on her tablet. "How's it going?" he asked, sliding into the seat across from her. She looked up, offering a small smile. "Slowly. There's so much data to go through, and every piece seems to raise more questions than answers. Sometimes I wonder if we'll ever truly understand what we're dealing with." "We will," Daniel assured her. "It won't happen overnight, but we'll get there, one step at a time." Emily nodded, her gaze drifting toward the viewport. Outside, the stars twinkled faintly, their light undimmed by the conflicts raging below. "Do you think we'll ever feel safe again? Or is this just how it's going to be? Always looking over our shoulders, always waiting for the next attack?" Daniel hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "I don't know if we'll ever feel completely safe, but maybe that's not the point. Maybe the goal isn't to live without fear, it's to keep moving forward despite it, to prove that no matter what happens, we won't give up." His voice carried conviction, and Emily found herself smiling again, however faintly. "You're starting to sound like one of those motivational speeches," she teased. "Maybe," Daniel admitted with a chuckle. "But sometimes, a little motivation is exactly what we need." As the days turned into weeks, the Odyssey continued. Its mission, navigating the delicate balance between diplomacy and survival. Humanity's place in the galaxy was still precarious, but they had proven time and again that they were capable of enduring, even thriving, in the face of adversity. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would meet them head-on, united by a shared determination to carve out their destiny among the stars. And somewhere, deep within the vast expanse of the cosmos, new stories waited to unfold. Stories of hope, courage, and the unyielding spirit of a species determined to belong. Months had passed since the dramatic events on Zirion Prime, and the galaxy was beginning to settle into a fragile new normal. The arrest of General Marcus Voss had sent shockwaves through the Galactic Empire, forcing Emperor Aldrich IV to take drastic measures to restore order. While Voss's treachery had been exposed, the scars of his betrayal lingered. Entire sectors of the Empire remained uneasy, their trust in imperial leadership shaken. For humanity, the aftermath brought both challenges and opportunities. Earth itself was slowly recovering from the devastating attack. Cities once reduced to rubble were now rising again, their skylines dotted with cranes and scaffolding. Aid shipments from sympathetic species flowed steadily, helping to rebuild infrastructure and provide for survivors. Yet the wounds ran deep. Millions of lives had been lost, and countless families were left grieving. The attack had left an indelible mark on humanity's collective psyche, a reminder of how vulnerable they still were despite their technological advancements. Daniel Carter stood on the observation deck of the Odyssey, gazing out at the stars as he often did. His thoughts drifted between the past and the future. The mission to Kalos 7 felt like a lifetime ago, yet its impact continued to shape humanity's place in the galaxy. Thanks to their efforts, General Voss's plans for Operation Iron Fist had been thwarted before they could come to fruition. Ambassador Liravok's covert network had played a crucial role, intercepting key operatives and dismantling supply chains intended to fuel the attacks. Though the operation had succeeded quietly, without fanfare or public acknowledgement, Daniel knew it had saved countless lives. Captain Laura Bennett approached him, her boots clicking softly against the metal floor. She carried 2 cups of coffee, handing one to Daniel with a small smile. "You've been spending a lot of time up here lately," she said, leaning against the railing beside him. "Something on your mind?" Daniel took a sip of the warm drink, letting the silence stretch for a moment. "Just thinking about everything that's happened and what's still ahead. We stopped VOP, but the Empire isn't going to forget what we did. They'll be watching us closely, waiting for any excuse to push back." Laura nodded, her expression thoughtful. "True, but we've also earned respect. People see us differently now, not just as newcomers but as survivors. That counts for something." "It does," Daniel agreed. "But respect doesn't mean safety. There are factions within the Empire who still see us as a threat. And beyond the Empire, there are others who might try to exploit our position." Emily Dawson joined them shortly after, carrying a tablet filled with updates from Earth. Her face lit up as she shared the latest developments. "Reconstruction is moving faster than expected," she reported. "Some of the cities are almost fully operational again. Trade routes are reopening and morale is improving. People are starting to believe we can come back stronger than ever." "That's good news," Laura said, smiling. "It shows we're not just rebuilding, we're growing." Daniel nodded, though his expression remained contemplative. "Growth is important, but so is unity. If we want to secure our place in the galaxy, we need to keep building alliances. That means reaching out to other species, even those who haven't always been friendly." In the weeks that followed, Daniel embarked on a series of diplomatic missions aimed at strengthening ties with neighboring civilizations. He traveled to distant worlds, meeting with leaders and representatives who had previously dismissed humanity as insignificant. Each encounter required careful negotiation, balancing assertiveness with humility. Some meetings ended in frustration, with little progress made. Others yielded promising results, forging tentative partnerships based on mutual interests. One such partnership emerged with the Zorathians thanks largely to Ambassador Liravok's influence. In recognition of their assistance during the crisis, humanity offered to share advanced medical technologies developed in response to the attack on Earth. The offer was met with gratitude, paving the way for deeper collaboration in fields like science and education. For the first time, humanity wasn't just asking for help, they were offering it. Back aboard the Odyssey, Chief Engineer Ryan Mitchell worked tirelessly to adapt Earth's technology for use by other species. His team modified equipment to suit alien physiology, ensuring compatibility without compromising functionality. Sergeant Alex Grant oversaw security protocols, ensuring that these exchanges occurred safely and transparently. Together, they demonstrated humanity's willingness to contribute meaningfully to galactic society. As word of these efforts spread, perceptions began to shift. Humanity was no longer seen solely as a victim or an aggressor. Instead, they were viewed as active participants in shaping the galaxy's future. Even some former adversaries softened their stances, recognizing the value of cooperation over conflict. Despite these strides, tensions within the Galactic Empire persisted. Emperor Aldrich IV faced mounting pressure from hardline factions demanding retribution against humanity. These groups accused the Emperor of weakness, arguing that allowing humans to expose Voss's treachery undermined imperial authority. While Aldrich maintained control for now, whispers of dissent grew louder with each passing day. To counter this narrative, Daniel proposed a bold initiative, inviting select delegates from across the galaxy to visit Earth and witness its recovery firsthand. The idea was risky. Exposing humanity's vulnerabilities could invite exploitation, but it also held the potential to foster empathy and understanding. With Captain Bennett's support, the plan moved forward. When the delegation arrived, they were greeted by scenes of resilience and determination. Survivors shared their stories, speaking of loss and hope in equal measure. Engineers showcased innovative solutions designed to prevent future disasters, while cultural festivals celebrated humanity's diversity and creativity. By the end of their visit, many delegates expressed admiration for humanity's spirit, pledging to advocate for greater collaboration. As the year drew to a close, Daniel found himself reflecting on how far humanity had come. From humble beginnings as explorers venturing beyond their solar system, they had grown into a force capable of standing toe-to-toe with the galaxy's oldest powers. Challenges remained, of course. Conflicts would arise, alliances would falter, and sacrifices would need to be made. But through it all, humanity had proven one thing above all else: they belonged. On the final evening of the year, Daniel stood once again on the observation deck of the Odyssey. Beside him, Laura and Emily joined in quiet contemplation. Outside, the stars shimmered brightly, their light undimmed by the struggles below. "You know," Daniel said softly, breaking the silence. "When I first started this job, I thought diplomacy was about finding common ground. And maybe it is, but it's also about showing people who you are. Not just your strengths, but your flaws, too. Because when you do that, you give them a chance to see themselves in you." Laura smiled, her gaze fixed on the endless expanse of space. "And maybe that's why we're still here. Because no matter how different we are, we're all looking for the same thing, a place where we belong." Emily nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "Here's to hoping we find it." With those words, the three fell silent, content to simply watch the stars. Somewhere out there, among the countless worlds and civilizations, humanity's story continued to unfold. A tale of courage, perseverance, and the unyielding belief that even in the vastness of the cosmos, they were never truly alone.